Welcome to Show Me the Money podcast that's more Dr. Drake Ramoray than debt management plan. I'm Ellie.
And I'm Claire, and each week we discuss how money shows up in some of our favourite pop culture, from the classic to the nostalgic to the contemporary.
And this week we are continuing on with our Friends miniseries, and it's everybody's favourite guy, Joey, this week. The kind of epitome of like the jokers out of the Friends.
Yeah, 100%. He's like the real he's like the real kind of lovable rogue, isn't he? Right from the start. And we get to see kind of like we talked about Chandler last week. We now get to see kind of the other side of that relationship because there are a lot of financial ties between those two characters. But for most of the 10 years that this ran, Joey's like a struggling actor. His best job, I suppose, is on Days of Our Lives as Dr. Drake Ramoray. And he does an interview where he pisses the writers off, so they kill him off. But then he comes back, I think, as his own twin. I can't
remember how they bring him back, but it's something weird.
But, I mean, these soap operas in the US, they've always got people coming back from the dead anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, he's kind of bankrolled by Chandler through a lot of his leaner years. One thing to really note, and this comes up on an episode of the Friends Through a Lens series of sentimental garbage that I talked about in another episode. But there's a specific episode about Joey's acting career with Jessica Brown Findlay, who played Sybil on Downton Abbey, who also I think any voiceover work should go to her.
Such a good voice.
I would buy anything. She's got such a good voice. But she's kind of talking about her own acting career. And one of the things that she says is it's quite bananas that Joey does not have another job.
Yeah.
To supplement his acting career. Because obviously the whole thing about LA is that all of the waiters and waitresses look like movie stars because they're all
trying to be them.
trying to be an actor. And so he doesn't do any of that. He just kind of sits around waiting. He gets his first agent very early on. I think it's season 1 or season 2 when he does the Freud ! Play where he's a singing Freud. He gets an agent. He gets Estelle off the back of that. And Estelle is a great side character in this. Yeah. I always thought that if I ever had an agent, I have an agent now who's not like Estelle at all. But I always thought that was the epitome of she's just sat there chain smoking, offering him soup commercials and roles as Al Pacino's butt. When he does get his first big break, he is really keen to pay Chandler back. We've talked about the fact that Chandler has paid for headshots for him. He's paid for classes, all of this stuff. So not only subsidizing his living costs actually, but funding his acting career.
Yeah, I think that's something. Again, I think I said this in the Chandler episode, but I think there's something that's quite admirable about it. And, not to kind of glamorize spending more money than you can, but we know that Chandler's in a position where he can afford to do this. And I think it just shows this real faith in his friend and this wanting to support him. And ultimately, I think it does seem like it pays off because we do see Joey's career over the course of the 10 series take off really towards the end. And actually, there's an argument that maybe by the end, he is the most successful.
This is the thing with creative careers though, isn't it? And we see it in our own careers. You can have really good years and really shit years. And also I think the lows are lower, but the highs can be higher in terms of how much you can earn. So, being a really popular character on a soap opera, I think, especially at the time when this is set, would be you would really be quids in.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, there is the kind of behind the scenes thing of what these actors were paid, because it's quite meta, isn't it? Having like an actor within a TV show, but like as in the 6, they all went together to negotiate getting the same pay.
And their pay massively increased through the series. So by series 9 and 10, they were being paid $1 million each per episode.
Which is crazy. Probably would be much more than that now for a show that was seeing this kind of success as well. But you know, if you contrast that with the kind of behind the scenes like money beef on Sex and the City, which I don't know if we really went into it in our miniseries, but you know that it's the cause of the whole fallout between Kim Cattrall and Sarah Jessica Parker was ostensibly around pay. And I suppose this just shows that like if you all get together and negotiate together, because really it is like you against the like studio or against the
they
like
need
network
you all.
or whatever. So they had a lot of negotiating power, because you couldn't have had this show without any single one of them. We've seen it happen. You know, we saw it happen with Sex and the City. As soon as there's no Samantha, there's no show. But yeah, so we see we do see Joey get like a bit awkward about money sometimes. So in the 5 Steaks and an Eggplant episode, he is quite like sort of, I guess, embarrassed about it. He and he is quite sort of defensive about the fact that he doesn't earn as much. And I think that can be like a bit of an instinct if you're like trying to fight your corner out or feeling a bit cornered by someone who's better off than you.
But I think there's this also interesting like dynamic with Joey of like there is that awkwardness we sometimes see, but then also like he doesn't have an issue with spending money.
No, it's true.
At all. So it's like you're not that awkward about it.
Yeah, and there's this like class dynamic as well, which is that I think we said last week, Joey comes from this really large working class Italian family. And I think like a good point to make is that this like comfort with borrowing and sharing money and buying gifts and stuff could be like cultural as much as it is to do with his personality. If he's come from like a kind of noisy home where things don't belong to just one person and he's the only brother, he's got 7 sisters, I think. And so there's that kind of element of it as well, where, you know, he doesn't often seem that abashed at the amount that he's borrowed from Chandler. But equally, there are several points at which he wants to repay him. So there's the bracelet, the really trashy bracelet that he buys for Chandler when he gets his Days of Our Lives job to like repay him. And I have to say, like, if someone was going to try, most of the time, if someone was going to try and repay me for something, I would rather them give me the money than like choose
a weird,
something for me.
Horrible present.
But you know, that episode they end up with 1 each, don't they? Because Chandler loses his, and then buys himself another one from the Liberace House of Crap, and he then Joey's like, we're bracelet buddies, and he's like, that's what they'll call us. So yeah,
cute.
it is. Oh, it is so cute. But yeah, he wants to kind of make it up to Chandler, but also I think I think some people who grow up with like very little are then like really careful with money, and then some people who grow up with very little, as soon as they get it, they like spend it straight away. And Joey definitely falls into the second category.
Yeah, but he doesn't ever seem like really, I guess, overly worried by it either.
No, although he does get a shock when his like visa bill comes from when he's furnished his apartment with the like all the ceramic animals, and that like the rain panel. Yeah. Where there's like that amazing scene where he and Chandler are sad because they're missing each other, and you think that he's looking out into the rain, but it zooms back and he's just looking at his like rain panel. But yeah, so he like doesn't put anything, I don't think he like saves any of his paycheck from Days of Our Lives. He seems quite complacent about the fact that like he's made it now and this
he's
is
got
how
this
things are going to
job.
be. I kind of recognize a bit of that in myself because I've had some like years where my income was really quite good, and there was definitely like a danger zone where I was like, oh well, this is just how much I earn now, and then I have had like a couple of years worth of wake up calls since then. So it's like a hard lesson to learn, and it does maybe seem like Joey learns that lesson. He doesn't seem to have the same. I think money worries kind of disappear for all of them as time goes on, don't they?
But also I think as well, like when you're, I guess, in a sitcom, it's probably quite hard because you think your character is going to be regular. Like you don't always know what's coming around the corner into it. It must be quite a shock when you get killed off.
Yeah, and I have seen, like, I do think that this happens to people where they just receive the script and they're like, oh fuck.
Yeah,
like,
I'm out of
I've got to
work.
find a new job. But yeah, I mean, it is his own fault as well because he does an interview where he says he writes most of his own lines, and so the writers get like annoyed and kill him off by making him fall down an elevator shaft. But they're watching when they're watching the show because the friends don't know that he's been fired when they're watching it, and he's like, "Does anyone else want to come in the elevator with me?" Like really funny. But so he gets killed off overnight. His income vanishes. But, you know, I think it's a real like illustration of the fact that sometimes you've made commitments to things on your higher income.
Yeah.
So like he's bought all of this absolute shite. Like his flat is full of tacky shite. And he's like, I decorated myself. And they're all like, yeah.
We can tell. Yeah.
But yeah, so Ross, he's sad because they're taking all of his stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
Because he can't pay his visa bill. And Ross is like, we'll buy him one thing. So he buys him the ceramic dog, which is like, if you were going to think of like motifs from the series, the ceramic dog is in there for me, for sure. But yeah, so he does like cycle through that pattern a couple of times. And he's always like, he's always the one who needs like rescuing financially, I suppose.
Yeah.
But he's fine because he just can move back in with Chandler after Chandler's roommate, Eddie, turns out to be a complete psycho who sits there and watches him sleep.
So weird.
Very weird.
But I mean, I think that's the thing. I feel like even though Joey doesn't have that family safety net to fall back on that some of the others do financially, ultimately like this kind of found family of his friends is that for him.
Yeah, they've got his back.
Yeah, they've always got his back. He knows that he's never going to be on the streets because they will always sort him out and scoop him up. And I do, I think again, some people will criticize that attitude, and I understand that as well. I think there's an element of he should take a bit more responsibility, especially when he gets the job and like is
but he's
earning.
Like a baby in every other way. Like you can't really expect him to be responsible financially. Like he's the least mature of everybody.
He kind of needs Chandler to be like the dad and to like set up his savings plan for him like every month to put his money aside.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Actually, this kind of like thing is supported by research. So research on windfall spending shows people consistently treat like irregular or unexpected or higher than like maybe if they have a higher income than they ever thought was possible, they treat it like differently than they would like a salary that they've kind of incrementally earned their way up to.
Yeah.
Because it feels like bonus money. Like, so quite often it's like not something to budget with. It's just something to splurge. And obviously Joey's like kind of the poster boy for that.
Yeah.
Psychological phenomenon.
Yeah. And I think, he is the character who is very lovable. Like, it's all quite harmless, but I do think there's a message in there about that cycle and actually, how it can become really problematic if you don't have those fallbacks, which he has. And obviously in the show, it's not like spelt out, it's not explicit that, not everybody can afford to exist in this cycle, but it is something I think that's like kind of worth just acknowledging is that he's in a very privileged situation.
Yeah,
to be able to do it and not have to deal with like any bad consequences, whereas a lot of people could be in a situation where like they have nowhere to live.
Yeah, left really high and dry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, obviously the show just like needs to keep these characters together. So
Yes.
no one ever really faces like a proper consequence for anything.
No.
Like really, it all sort of works out fine in the end. But yeah, I think Joey is like a really interesting study in like someone for whom like maybe they didn't have very much money growing up, and instead of like, you know, so often what we see in the creative arts is like very middle class people with like wealthy parents where they've been able to go into that, and he's not thought like, oh, I better go off and do something stable. I'm going to pursue this thing that I don't really know how to do. Like one of the things that Jessica Brown Findlay says is like she was very surprised by how little he knows about his craft. So doesn't really know how to do anything. But he, you know, and he like just keeps like every setback he just keeps going, and he does come good in the end. But also just this thing of like, I do think there is a bit of a kind of thing of if you've grown up kind of without money, sometimes like you haven't really had anyone to teach you its meaning. And then as soon as you've got some, you're like, oh, what can I spend this on? You know? And I do think that those like very kind of trashy, quite like gaudy, like big, like signifiers of wealth, like, because that's what his like apartment is. He wants to go out and live on his own, and his lifestyle inflates really, really quickly. I think that can maybe be slightly more common if you've grown up without money.
And I think it's really interesting what you mentioned there about as well, how so often we see, I guess, creative industries dominated by people from middle classes, because there's that comfort to fall back on if you aren't making much money in the early days and to get your kind of self-established. But I do also wonder if, and you see this sometimes in like stories about business, but if you have come from very little, you in some ways have a similar approach, because you don't have any expectations. You don't have anything to lose, like in the same way that you might have if you're expected to go down like a certain career path. And it's like, let's just throw the kitchen sink at it and see where we end up and see what happens. And I mean, I'm guessing there are probably like different camps of people who have had that experience, but some will go and do that and just try and fail until something succeeds. And then you'll have some people who really crave a stability, like the stability of like a traditional career, because they've not had that financial stability. But yeah, I mean, it seems like he has no qualms about giving it a go, and he clearly has a lot of self-confidence. Like you say, maybe too much, given he doesn't really know what he's doing.
But he's very bouncy, isn't he? He's got like a lot of bounce back ability, which is really important if you work in like creative arts.
Absolutely.
Even if you're working in like, if you're just a creative freelancer like us, like you kind of have to be bouncy.
You have to be prepared for rejection.
Absolutely. Oh God, that's a whole other podcast, isn't it? But yeah, well, we should wrap it up there, because we have still got one more friend to talk about, which, if you've been doing your maths, if you've been listening to the series, is Phoebe. And we are going to talk about her next week.
Absolutely.
But for now, please go and follow us on socials. So we're at Show Me the Money Official. You can find us on Substack, where you'll get a nice little mail from us every Sunday morning. And yeah, please follow us or subscribe, because then you'll get these episodes straight in your player as soon as they're released. And give us a review while you're at it. Okay, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.